and welcome to our PrivacyRight webinar series provided by the Office of the Information and Privacy Commissioner for British Columbia. This series offers information to private organizations about their obligations under the Personal Information Protection Act, also known as PIPA. PIPA is a law that governs how organizations like yours can collect, use, and disclose personal information. Maybe you're here because you're part of an organization that provides goods or services to British Columbians, and you want to brush up on your privacy obligations. Perhaps you're developing privacy training for your employees. Or maybe, as a consumer, you want to learn about how organizations are required to handle your personal information. No matter the reason, you've come to the right place. Today's webinar covers the authority to collect, use, and disclose personal information. The Personal Information Protection Act, or PIPA, provides private sector organizations with the authority to collect, use, or disclose personal information, or PI for short. Organizations are only allowed to collect, use, or disclose PI for purposes that a reasonable person would consider appropriate in the circumstance, when the organization has notified the individual and has received their informed consent, or if the organization is authorized to collect without consent. Some specific examples of PI are a person's name, address, gender, education, income, financial information, medical and genetic information, date of birth, driver's license number, photographs or images of the person, and employment history. The OIPC has many guidance documents available that can help organizations and individuals understand what PI can be collected and when it may be appropriate to collect, use, or disclose different types of PI. One common theme? Collect the least amount of PI possible to meet your business needs. Today, we will focus on the types of PI an organization may need to collect and how to determine whether a reasonable person would consider that collection to be appropriate. As you consider what PI is appropriate for you to collect, think about the type of business you operate. For example, a liquor store may need to collect PI of a financial nature, such as a credit card number and the cardholder's name, in addition to viewing an individual's driver's license for proof of age. Let's consider another example, a pharmacy. A pharmacist may also need to collect financial information, along with billing information, personal health numbers, and even more sensitive PI, such as medical conditions, medication history, and allergy information. Another example is an investment advisor. It would likely be appropriate for them to collect financial information such as a client's employment, income source, and copies of tax returns, along with more sensitive PI such as social insurance numbers, pension amounts, family structure, home ownership, and perhaps even basic health information. So, the type of business you have will help you understand what types of PI may be appropriate to collect, use, or disclose. Always keep in mind that the PI must be what a reasonable person would consider appropriate in the circumstances. Use the reasonable person test to determine if your organization would have the authority to collect, use, or disclose different types of PI under PIPA. Okay, so what does that mean? The reasonable person test considers the nature of the information collected, the purposes and circumstances surrounding the collection and the use of the information, and how the organization handles the information. Think about whether a reasonable person with no special interest would consider the way your business handles personal information appropriate. Basically, this test includes asking yourself a series of questions about the PI you want to collect before you collect it. Questions may include: what are the purposes for collection of PI? How do we want to use the PI we collect? What types of PI do we need to fulfill those purposes? Is the PI of a sensitive nature? If so, are there other types of PI we can collect instead that are less sensitive or ways to reduce the sensitivity of the PI? How likely is each type of PI going to be useful and effective in achieving those purposes? How much PI do we really need to meet those purposes? Can we collect less PI and still effectively achieve the purposes? How do we want to collect the PI? Are there less privacy intrusive means to collect it? This test should be done before you collect the personal information, and at regular intervals, to ensure that the PI you collect continues to effectively meet your purposes for its collection. Similar questions should be asked to determine whether your organization's intended use or disclosure of the PI is also appropriate. If you are considering a new use for personal information you've already collected, you also need to determine whether the new use is consistent with the original purposes for collection. If it isn't consistent, you need to go back and notify individuals again and obtain their consent for the new use. If you have determined that a reasonable person would consider the PI you want to collect and the methods for collection to be appropriate within your business context, the next step is to work on providing notification to the individuals before collecting the PI and obtaining their informed consent. One final thing to note is that under PIPA, if your organization's collection, use, disclosure, or disposal of PI is not what a reasonable person would consider appropriate, individuals can complain to the OIPC. If the OIPC investigates, your organization may be ordered to change its practices. And there you go. That's it for our webinar about what you need to know about your organization's authority to collect, use, and disclose personal information under the Personal Information Protection Act. If you have any questions, you can reach out to us by email at info@oipc.bc.ca or give us a call at 250-387-5629. Make sure to check out our series of webinars on the website at oipc.bc.ca. Thanks for watching.